Story is, it's been all over the world. I love what you said there, Jay, about stories appearing all over the world. Sometimes the same, sometimes a little different. This is a story that was inspired from an Irish tune that I heard. Because you see, there was a baby born in County Down, in Bainbridge, and he was stolen away by fairies. But his mother knew almost instantly that she had a changeling on her hands. And so she went to the wise woman of the village and she said, "What should I do?" And she followed every instruction to the letter. And she got her baby back. But Travis, her son, was always a little different. Touched by the fairies, some said. Others just avoided him altogether. He was just odd. There was nothing really wrong with him. He was different. His mother bought him a fiddle, and soon he poured all of that otherworldliness into his music. Poured that otherworldliness into his music, and he was talented, and it was beautiful. But it made him stranger still to those in his village. And so when he was old enough, he said goodbye to his mother. And he went to the big city. And his mother passed within a week.
Okay.
And there he was in the big city, making his living. But pretty soon, his wandering toes got the better of him, and he started to play all over the countryside, north up to Galway, to Bantry Bay, to Derry. He played all over. And one day, he was wandering by the side of a river, and he thought, this looks like the band. That village there is the one that I was born into. And just as he was thinking that, he came around a curve, and there she was. Oh, she looked so sweet from her 2 bare feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Such a coaxsome elf, sure he shook himself, for to see she was really there. And it wasn't just one way. His heart leapt out of his chest, but her eyes met his and they flashed. And she was left breathless. And when she got her breath back, she kicked those bare feet up and ran, her brown hair streaming. And Travis, he said to a farmer who was just nearby, "Who was that?" And the farmer planted his feet and shook his finger in Travis's face. He said, that is the most beautiful, the finest, the kindest, the smartest. That girl is the gem of Ireland's crown. That is Rosie McGann, and she is not for the likes of you. You leave our Rosie alone. But Travis was never one to follow suggestions. And so he finagled himself into his Sunday best, and he heard that the harvest fair was the next day, so he began to play with the musicians. And Rosie was there, and she danced with every lad in the county who asked her, but she never danced with any of them twice. And soon it was obvious to everyone, even those boys, that she had eyes and a smile only for the fiddler. Their courtship was fast and sweet, and they set a date to be married in the morning at the kirk. And Rosie, she and her sister Lily were up that night, the night before her wedding. She said, "Oh, Travis has promised to write me a song about our courtship for our wedding night." And then both girls heard it. Music coming from outside. They looked out, the moon was almost full that night, and they couldn't see anyone, but Rosie said, "Oh, it must be Travis." And before her sister Lily could stop her, she ran down the stairs and out the door, bare feet flying, brown hair streaming. And the next morning, when Lily went to the church, there was Travis standing at the altar with no idea where Rosie had gone. And when he heard the story, well, he went straight to the wise woman of the village. And unbelievably, it was the same one that his mother had consulted. She said, "Oh, lad, I didn't think the fair folk were done with you. This is not good news. I can tell you how you might see her again if you go to the edge of the forest and you stand when the full moon rises so that the ash tree casts a moon shadow on you. You'll see the door that opens in the nearby hill, and that leads to the land of the fair folk." But Travis, I've never heard of anyone coming back from there twice. But of course, for Travis, there was no choice at all. So he went that night to the edge of the forest. He stood in the moon shadow of the ash tree as it rose up full, and then he heard music. Oh, it was the most beautiful. He longed to play with them, and then he saw the people coming by. They were so beautiful. They looked familiar and strange all at once. And so he began to play his fiddle with them, and he got in line and went through the door that opened up in the hill and crossed the passage and came into the most beautiful cathedral-like room he'd ever seen. The walls were all hung with weaving that seemed to come alive while he looked at it. And there at the other end was a solid gold throne, and sitting on it was the prince of all the fairy. And holding the prince's hand was his Rosie, and she seemed to be in a trance. Well, Travis watched for his moment, and when the music had started to die down, he began to play. From Bantry Bay down to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no maid I've seen like the brown colleen that I met at the county down. And that broke the trance. That broke the trance. She looked at him. He continued on. At the harvest fair she was surely there, and I dressed in my Sunday clothes, with my shoes shone bright and my hat cocked right, got a smile from a nut brown rose. Well, now she started to dance, her eyes locked on Travis. No pipe I'll smoke, no horse I'll yoke, till the plows turn a rust-colored brown. Till my own fireside is my smiling bride. She's the star of the county down. While by this time, Rosie had her arms around his waist and was dancing, and he was playing. And he continued to play until all the fairy got up and started to dance, even the prince. But he said, "Oh, mortal, I recognize you, and I'll give you a choice. You may leave this place twice, but you may only take one, either your Rosie or your musical talent and your fiddle." And he looked at his Rosie, who had fallen in love with his music as much as with him. And they both smiled, and he started to play, and they began to dance. And for all I know, they're dancing there still, for they were never seen above ground again.